Okay, here we have the screencast for the reading by W.E.B. Dubois of our spiritual strivings. And the directions here, we want to make sure that we have some understanding of double consciousness, any connection to your life, and try to figure out what this author is trying to suggest as a solution to the race problem in America. So we begin with this term, double consciousness. And here he writes, there's a sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others, measuring one's soul by the tape of the world. One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings. So what I want you to do is just think about you. Think about who you are. Think about a time in your life where maybe, you were, experiencing something similar. For example, I am a Puerto Rican American, or am I an American Puerto Rican? Depending on how I, place the Puerto Rican can determine where I hold my allegiance to. It's just something to think about. So think about whatever you are, and I'll give you a couple of scenarios that'll help reinforce this understanding of double consciousness. So the reading starts out in the beginning where he comes to this realization that he is different, and he talks about a card exchange. So imagine, he's in elementary school, and he is trying to, give his exchange, as he mentions here. The exchange was married to one girl, a newcomer, refused my card, and she gives him a glance. So at that point, he says it dawned on him at that particular point that he was different from the others. He also brings in this particular passage where he says that people approach him in a half-hesitant way. They ask him questions, or they say things like, I know an excellent colored man, or I fought at Mechanicsville, or do not these southern outrages make your blood boil? So he's referencing in this dialogue things that have been communicated to him. So he says, I know an excellent colored man, or I fought at Mechanicsville. Like, this is a reference to the Civil War, a battle. So, hey, I fought at Mechanicsville. So imagine in a scenario if the individual is white and he's saying this to someone black. Keep in mind, I'll be using various terms. I understand that race is a social construct, and so I could use the term Caucasian. However, if you're not from the Caucasus area, that could be problematic. So I may play around with some of the labels here just to kind of highlight, the use of labels and how they create a problem for society. So let's kind of move on. I'll give you a scenario. So here I've this image of a 1920s store, and you see the aisles. So in this scenario, I want you to think about double consciousness and think about you walking through a grocery store, or in this case, this department store, and this is your path. And this little explosion represents something. So think about, yourself right now. Maybe you're Jewish, maybe you're African American, Asian American, maybe you're homosexual, whatever it is that you are. Just think about that for a sec. You're walking down whether or not blacks should be content. And he writes about the violence, segregation, he talks about lynching. And keep in mind that for the early 1900s, slavery ended about 50 years prior. So there are probably people that have been slaves in their lives, and they're still alive. So he's looking at a solution for the race problem in America, and he writes that physical freedom, political power, training of brains, and training of hands, none of these things together alone are going to solve our problem. For example, we've obtained physical freedom, slavery is over. Political power during Reconstruction, you see, former slaves, Africans in positions of power and political power. Did it end segregation? No. The training of brains, education, the training of hands, the ability to produce a wage. If we have any one of these, that might not be good enough. And in some cases, we tried physical freedom. It didn't change our circumstances. We have political power, yet we still have segregation. So what's the solution? His argument is one of those things is incomplete. You probably need all four. And to understand where he's coming from, you have to think about his approach in comparison to Booker T. Washington. Booker T. Washington, born in 1856, which means this individual was born into slavery. He was not. maybe that has a role in their approach to the race problem in America. Washington, somebody was saying, we need to accept, what's given to us. You can't expect slavery and segregation to end and people's and society changes, like that. It just doesn't happen that way. Time. We need time. Whereas Dubois is talking about self-reliance. You can't accept what they're going to give us because they will give us nothing. If they're going to give us jobs and menial tasks, that's never going to help us overcome economic problems that are, going to plague us after slavery. So we need to do things on our own, and we can't just accept. We need to use all of these to achieve greatness. And I can't help but think that Washington and Dubois represented the Malcolm and Martin of the civil rights movement, because all four of these individuals have different approaches. It would have been nice to have a conversation. I'd like to be a fly on the wall with these four individuals talking about the race problem in America in 2020. Anyway, that's it. Think about these questions.